I love it. Welcome to the Pipe Podcast. I'm your host, Crispin Cruz from Sales Arbiter. I have Beate Chelette with us today. I'm so very excited to have you on the show and on the podcast. We're going to be talking about, of course, the pipe. And we talk about sales process, sales initiatives, sales prospecting, and sales experiences. And how that relates to you and your organization. And Beate, I would just love to just kind of jump right into it, if you're okay with that. And maybe just give the listeners and viewers like a little background on you, what part of the world you run and some of the things that you do, in your organization that really make an impact, for sales.
Yes, thank you so much, Crispin, for having me. I'm really excited to be on your show. And, I was jamming and, with the music, I'm like, this is so well produced, love it. So my name is Beate Chelette. I'm known as the growth architect. And what that means is that I'm a business strategist who works with visionaries and thought leaders and helps them to grow their authority and scale their impact. We are an impact-driven company. We are in Los Angeles. And the reason we did this was purposely because we wanted to make sure that our team at all moments understands that our impact is driven by how much impact we help other people make. So unless we help our clients to make their impact, we are not doing our job. So that's great. Like the quick intro.
And so that's a lesson in itself. Like you're extremely articulate in how you talk about your organization, the impact, what you do, and even talking a little bit about some of the outcomes. And, how many times do you meet someone, Beate, and you're talking with them and although they've been in their business, they've been running their businesses, they've been growing their organizations, they've been talking to people, they've serviced, people in their industry, but they just don't have that, what I would call that 30-second commercial or whatever you want to call it, the elevator pitch. Like they don't have it down. Like they don't, and you want to be able to you really want to be able to explain your organization, the services that you provide. You want to be able to explain them in a manner that first is understood, by your potential prospects or those that might be interested. But also, how important is it for the leadership and the management to really know, what you do, like how you can make a, successful or successful impact on the businesses that you serve. How important is that?
Well, I think you kicked off with like the number one most important question and the one that I address the most often. If you cannot say quickly, concisely, and to the point what you are doing, you're not going to be closing. Because if you are putting the exploration or the discovery on your potential client, they don't have time for that. I did an interview series that was during COVID where I talked to a lot of C-level executives. And the thing that I heard was the same across the board. They said, we need people to walk into my office and tell me if I bring them on board, what will they do for me? What will I get out of it? How much time, money, energy will this save me? And what is my transformation journey or promise with them? So you nailed it right away from the get-go. If I cannot do that, and if I cannot go in and I say to my clients, now let's just stay maybe with this example, Crispin. When you come to me, that's the first thing we do. I have a program called the Signature Growth System. And I have found that most business owners, especially experienced business owners, have the ability, like you, when you help people with their sales process, it's not just training the salespeople, but it's also to look at the data. It's looking at the KPIs. It's looking at all the different things that goes into it. So if you say, well, I train salespeople and I help you with the KPIs, I help you with the organizational sales process setup. And people say, well, what do you do? It sounds like you do 16 different things. So you have to put an umbrella over it. That becomes the hero. And then all the other pieces of phases of your transformation journey. It's solved so quickly, so easily if you know what you're doing.
I mean, it's so, and it sounds simple. It's not. I mean, because
No.
like it sounds simple.
No.
Because
No.
I mean, you're doing the same. You're doing a lot of the same things when you're going in and you're going through a full discovery. You're asking lots of questions. You're trying to understand how did they get to where they are today, right? And so, how are you doing that differently? How are you doing that differently, Fiona?
Well, I mean, I think that a lot of times we have to, go back to mindset or to understanding psychology or how we operate. We believe that our knowledge base is what counts because that's our experience. It's our interpretation. That's how we see the world. We know by looking at the data that most people are searching for data that confirms what they already believe in. Now, if I look at this from a business owner perspective, that is, let me just pick the one word that sums it up, stupid. Because why would you try to confirm what you believe in when it's clearly not working? I mean, that's just unbelievable. So the first step always is to say, challenge my own belief system. Is what I believe actually the right set of information? And then if I'm not sure because I know other people who are achieving greater results than I am, but I'm not having the results, then what do they know that I don't know?
You're so right. And I say it's taboo. When you walk into a client's office or a potential prospect's office, and then you start asking questions and you're going through and you're really trying to understand, okay, what's a compelling reason for us to even get together today, right? And you're going through that whole process. And then you start asking more operational questions when it comes to how they've grown their organization or sales related. And then they say, well, and then you just ask something very simple. Well, why do you do it that way? Well, that's the way we've always done it. It's like, oh my, I mean, just talking to you about it right now, because that's the way we've always done it. It's like, that's the kiss of death. Like at least in my world, and it can be, let me just say that, because some of the things that they've done and that they've always done that way are showing results. And there's a reason why that's happened, right? But when you come up against that, how do you manage those types of opportunities or those situations?
Well, I mean, we look at we look at three pieces. We look at mindset, skill set, and action set, right? Do you have the right mindset? Do you understand that in order to become this, you need to act and behave like people who are actually doing this? You want to be an Elon Musk, no matter how controversial he is. You want to be like a Mark Cuban. You want to be like a Bill Gates. You need to be like they are. So what is it that they do? They are surrounding themselves with the smartest people. They spend an enormous amount of money on self-development. They all work with coaches. At least I hope Elon Musk does. And if he doesn't, that would be my first recommendation, by the way.
Give the other call. Give the other call.
Just a side note here. But so you have to first, understand in your head that there is a particular way you need to behave and act to be at that level, to operate at that level. If you're not operating at that level, if you're at a different level, I can guarantee you're not behaving like this person, because otherwise you wouldn't be here. You would be there. So then gets us to the second one, which is the action set, which is, what are the actions that you keep doing? Are you actually doing the work, or are you just sitting there and doing the same thing over and over again? And that gets you to the third piece, which is the skill set. Do you have the skills that are required from someone who works at that level or operates at that level? It's, as you said, it's easy.
Yes,
it's just a lot of work.
How many times are you going into organizations also and you're talking to them about mindset? You're talking to them about the 6 inches between their ears, right? And what impact that has on the culture of the company. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Well, I think that we're seeing really some significant changes on this, Crispin. I think maybe like 5, 6, 7 years ago, there was not as much talk about mindset, mindfulness, wellness, mental well-being, mental health crisis as we have today. So I think we reached a threshold in this lifetime where people are recognizing that their brains can only manage a certain amount of information and that it gets very, very overwhelming. So in order for you to be operating at a high performing level, which is what we are talking here about and what your show is all about, it's all about high performance, is where do you need to be mentally to be in a high performance setting? I do mindset work every day. I listen to a podcast. I read. I have written out my manifesto of what I want. I have, in my office, I have flip charts, sticking all over the wall here in my studio. So the minute that I walk in, I see things, the more difficult, the bigger the reward. So I constantly remind myself that the universal principles that are at work. So that's how you have to start. You have to start with opening up the opportunity in your head.
That's great. And so let's shift gears for a second, and I'd love to talk about some of the unique challenges that you've maybe faced, by being a woman in this industry, in this world, and how you've been so successful at growing your organization. And I just think that there's a place for that. And I would love to have you share some of those experiences or just, some of that information with the listening and viewing audience as well.
Yeah, I'd love to, of course. So I'm your everyday, German girl from Bavaria with lederhosen and the whole 9 yards. And I figured that Germany was just not my country. I always felt that I needed to be somewhere else. And there are markers in my life where I could tell very early on that my brain just works a little bit differently. And so in Germany, we take aptitude tests when we are leaving school. And I was taking this aptitude test, and over 16 pages asked me all these kinds of questions on how I, what I like to do. Do I like being outside? Do I mind carrying heavy weights? Am I afraid of heights? And I'm like, no, I love being outside, strong, can carry stuff. No, I'm not afraid of heights. And then the aptitude test told me that I should have been a roofer. Not that I think that roofing is a bad profession. It just wasn't exactly, it really wasn't exactly my dream job. And so when I told her, I said, that's really not appropriate. And I said, can it be a jewelry designer, a textile designer, a photographer? And she goes like, no, too many applicants, not enough jobs. Why don't you want to be a secretary? I said, secretary? I want to be the boss.
I love it.
So early on, I recognized there was something that wasn't working for me. Furthermore, then there's this moment, I became a photographer anyway. And there's this moment where I'm on top of a glacier in Switzerland. And it was my job to bring a car on the bottom of a helicopter in a big net all the way up to the top of the glacier for a shoot. And I remember this moment when you see this helicopter, the blades are coming, they're kind of like coming up over, and you see it like kind of come up here. And I'm going like, I am outside. I'm schlepping. I'm not afraid of heights. I'm doing exactly what the aptitude test said I should be doing. It just was a completely different interpretation.
That is incredible.
So the lesson, Crispin, then is if I can answer the questions properly, but the interpretation of the world of what I'm capable of is off, then it must be on me to make these interpretations. So I immigrated to the United States. I had become a photographer, then a photo editor at Elle magazine. And then I was laid off because of a recession. I had a baby. And so next thing I know, I'm going through a divorce with a 6 months old in a massive recession, having to figure out how to run my own business. And then the decade of bad luck starts.
Wow. And you came through. You threw it.
I did, through fires, floods, riots, earthquakes, September 11th, the lawsuit, a tsunami that where one of my key vendors vanished. And at the end of all of this, I was able to sell my business for millions of dollars to Bill Gates after I was $135,000 in debt with my bankruptcy attorney on speed dial in my phone. And 18 months later, I sell my business for millions.
Like, listen to that. So tell me, I mean, those that are listening and watching, tell me she doesn't have the mindset right. So the mindset piece correct. Like that, because it's real easy, Beate, to fall into that trap. Woe is me. Woe is me. Look what's happening to me. You know, nothing's working right now. And just to give in to that, you know. So what are some of the triggers that you built for yourself to make sure that you are continuing to, you know, affirm, and maybe that was part of it, using a lot of affirmations, but affirm, you know, that you're going to continue to plow through, you're going to continue to make it happen no matter what?
Well, there's a couple of things, and I think that's actually very, very important to talk about that. So when I said earlier, the bigger the challenge, the greater the opportunity. So in mindset, when you go deep into mindset work, there are universal laws. One of them is the law of polarity. The law of polarity says that if it exists on this level, if white exists, black must exist, because you cannot compare both. You don't know if it's dark unless you know the light, and you don't know that it's light unless you know that there's the dark. So if you think about the law of polarity, so the deeper you're in it today, and I think this is really sort of a very, very important message right now. The deeper you're in it right now, the bigger the opportunity is. You just have to believe that it's there. So for me, it was very, very clear in my mind that at the end of the day, the joke could not be on me. Like I couldn't fathom that. So I remember I was looking at this and I'm like borrowing money to pay interest on borrowed money, which, as you very know, is the death spiral of any business financially. But I was sitting there, I'm like, God, universe, spirit, whatever powers are, it's just not possible that after all of this, at the end of the day, the joke's on me. I mean, that's just I couldn't comprehend that. It was not possible for me. And so I was like, well, it has to shift. It has to turn. I would remember I would be in my office and I'd be yelling at my computer and I'd go like, turn around. I know you got to shift it out. I would be yelling in my office. I was like, you know, it's got to shift out of this. And then it did. And a lot of it, and I know you want to talk about this, has to do with reframing the way we show up and what we say and how we say it.
That's right. It's such a great story. I love it. We're getting comments coming in now. I mean, of the viewers and listeners that it's really resonating with. And so, you know, part of that is what you experienced. And thank you, Patrick, you know, turning adversity into rocket fuel. I love it. Right.
That's a great headline, actually. Are you like a writer, Patrick? Because that is, I may have to use that, you know?
And that's it. And you all along, you know, you had to, you know, you're a bit in protect mode as well, protecting, you know, your name, you know, your branding, you know, the branding of who you are, Beate, is crucial. Like, and I think you talk about some of these things, like and you have, you know, and you have talked about these things on your website and with other organizations as well. Can we talk about that? Like why personal branding is so important, so crucial, you know, for sales professionals as well?
100%. So I talk a lot about growing your authority, and growing your authority means that you have to get very clear on who you are and how you show up in the world. So I'll give you an example. Because I have a German accent. Now, I don't speak like Arnold, yeah? So it's not that bad, but you can hear that I have an accent. There's a common conception that people from Germany are very organized, that they like engineering things. So why not make that part of my brand? Now, that is natural to me. I am very organized and structured, and I like strategies and processes and systems. But because I have this, I have put this in my brand, and my brand is the growth architect. The reason it is a word or it's a description is because it is congruent with who I am, how I show up, and how I talk. I'm a lot about no BS, straight up, to the point, making things happen, and telling people the shortcuts. So, when I go into with a client, I say, we have two options here. I can go Gestalt. I can help you to figure it out on your own by asking the right questions. But if I would happen to know the answer, would you like to give it to? Would you like me to give it to you? And then you determine on whether or not that's right for you. So that's part of my brand. So now let's talk about your audience. The whole point of having a brand is that people can recognize, when do I need to bring someone in like that? So if you want someone who is a fuzzy coach, who makes you feel good because you're going through adversity and you want to be uplifted and you don't want to be judged, I am not your coach. I'm going to call you on it. So you come to me, and that needs to be clear in my branding, that when you want stuff to get done and you want to be challenged and you tried everything else and you now need an actual strategy and you're done with pussyfooting around the whole issues and you're ready to go, and do the work, that's when you come to me. And then we'll make the strategy, we create the systems, the workflows, we give you the plan, and it's go time. So for a sales professional, which we really all are sales professionals, is how do you want to show up to your clients? Do you want to be, I had a guest on my podcast, Alex Brookman, he calls himself a thought partner, which I thought was an interesting way. I have people that call themselves trusted advisors. So how do you position yourself toward your clients that they know when is it appropriate to bring you in? And that is the part of the authority and the personal branding is you have to stop being afraid of repelling people. You have to focus on attracting the right people. And I think that, Crispin, you tell me if I'm wrong, is the hardest part for most.
It is. It's that part. And then also knowing the person that you're engaging with. Like, part of our program is heavily, heavily defined in the DISC strategy, DISC. And so it's really trying to understand, what's the behavior type of your prospect? What's the behavior type of your client? What are the behavior types of those individuals within the organization? And then, in some ways being chameleon-like, to engage with them at a higher level by really understanding, what their behavior type is. And so a lot of that is, that a lot of it can be learned. I mean, through the process of how can I identify, the prospect or the individual that I'm engaging with, and how can I build a stronger connection with them, right? And so it's really interesting how that parallels, or at least it connects to a lot of what you were just saying as well.
Well, I think you're absolutely correct. I'm a certified Myers-Briggs. So for exactly the same reason, I think there's two things people need to or want to understand about personality assessments. It's number one, you got to know who you are and how you come across. So when somebody says to me, "Wow, you maybe you're an acquired taste. You seem to be, pretty to the point."
Right.
Yes, right. Absolutely.
Right.
But I know that because I did a lot of the work on that. But if I know that that's how I come across, And now I've done the work on a DISC or Myers-Briggs or whatever other assessments are. And I know there's other personality types. I can level
That's right.
my behavior to make sure that I don't
That's right.
repel everybody, but that I can say, listen, and it's interesting that you said this because I literally just had a case like this where I volunteer as a coach in a very well-known organization. And I have a guy that was having a challenge with how I show up, but I show up with hard boundaries out of the gate because I know if I don't lay down the law in the beginning, and it's a volunteer position, I don't get paid for that, but I'm a professional coach, right? So why would I volunteer for something that I normally get paid? So there have to be parameters under which I operate. So I laid out the parameters, and this person objected to that and subsequently quit, like without even having the first meeting. And so I thought about this and I responded and I said, look, this is designed. This is by design because you need to get clear on why you want to do this in the first place. If the first hurdle makes you quit, what's that say?
Yeah.
That is by design. And so I said, I don't take this personal. I said, it is designed to push you. It is designed to challenge you. It is designed to make you go, well, but don't I deserve all this special treatment? No.
Right.
No, not in this particular setting. You earn that right. So we'll see what this person is going to end up doing. But I think that, if we talk about sales, that is, as we all know, the number one most important question.
Yeah.
Why do you want this?
That's right.
Why does it matter? Because if it doesn't matter, if it's nice to have, but there is nothing that moves the needle, there's no urgency behind it. We don't need to sell anything.
That's exactly
because they're not ready.
That's exactly right. And in my world, it's the same type of conversation. I just do it in a little different way. I mean, if you can't handle it in these four walls of the training room, how are you gonna handle it out there? I mean, that's a killer, killer be killed, environment out there. I mean, if you can't handle it here, how are you going to handle it with a prospect? How are you going to handle those objections? How are you going to handle, engaging with people that may or may not, have a compelling reason to buy? How are you going to just continue to kowtow and let them and chase them and do all of those things that just simply waste our most valuable asset, which is time? Like, is that what you're going? Because if that's where you're at, this is not the right place for you. Like, and I've said
no, and what coach, to your point, Crispin, what coach goes, oh, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings?
No.
What good coach does that? The coach says, you got hurt? Get up. You missed the shot. Practice it 1,000 times. There is no coach out there that says, your feelings got hurt. I'm very sorry I hurt your feelings. I think that's what that was the point that I wanted to make. It was really interesting that this happened so quickly, is that you join this organization, expect to be challenged. And then you need to troubleshoot and problem solve or trust the process.
It's so good. It's so good.
We'll see.
The show has just flew by because we're talking about such great stuff, and you're giving really, you're giving emeralds and pearls and diamonds out to this audience, and I just so much appreciate you being here. So, this is the time that we typically pivot into what we call the Sales Arbiter 7. And, I didn't come up with this on my own. Our friend James Lipton from Inside the Actor Studio, if you've ever seen that, he would ask, he would ask, great guy, questions like this at the end of his interviews, and, find out things about your favorite actor or actress that you may never have known. So I'm using that same kind of platform here. And if you're okay with it, I'd just like to jump into that if you're all right. Yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah,
thank
go
you.
ahead.
So
Fire away.
what is your favorite word? Opportunity.
Opportunity and strategy. That's actually a tough one for me. I think opportunity, because I do like the idea of looking at everything into where's the opportunity in this. So let's go with opportunity.
Okay, and let's pivot. So what's your least favorite word?
Difficult. It's difficult.
Sounds a lot like excuse making.
Well, yeah, because I think that here's I read this not the book, but I watched the movie, which is absolutely horrible, but the message is really good, and it's called The Art of Not Giving a Bleep, right? And he has such an interesting, very simple concept. He says, if we knew, hypothetically speaking, that the outcome is guaranteed we die, then how would you reverse engineer your life so that you arrive at the exit point feeling okay about what you've done? And it just completely changed everything for me. So when I see people that are making all these excuses, I'm like, that's the path you want to go to the exit route? Really?
And and I hear it all the time. Like, and that's it literally is almost something now that I'm so in tune with, and you probably are too, that all of a sudden you start counting them. Okay, that's an excuse. That's an excuse. That's an excuse. That's an excuse. Like and I don't know if that's just the way that I've conditioned myself with those that, that I'm helping to mentor and coach and train just like you are. But, it's interesting to see and hear, even my reaction to it. Because I think we're cut from that same mold. I'm pretty much a no excuses kind of guy too. Even though I may, don't, and I say this often too, don't mistake my kindness for weakness, right?
Oh my God. And let's face it, in sales, you gotta have to pick up the phone. You're gonna have to have these conversations. And yes, text messaging and emailing is great. And it's something that you have to get better at it every day, and you have to constantly challenge yourself. And if you had a weird conversation, you're on the phone and it's weird, you're going to have many, many more conversations until you can talk about it in a very conversational kind of way. If you have a hard time quoting the price, then you need to get really into this matter. But people go like, well, people don't pick up. We are in a recession. We're technically not in a recession. Well, business is down. Well, life is a cycle. I mean, we've known this. If you look at history, there's always a cycle. You know exactly what you need to do in a down cycle. You need to prepare for the upswing. So what are you complaining about? Well, I need to preserve my money. Well, if you're not investing money right now to get better at your skills, you're going to be behind when the upswing happens. I mean, so there's so many arguments. But again, this goes back to what we said about earlier, is if I only look for arguments that confirm what I already believe in, well, then you're going to stay exactly where you are.
Patrick chimes in, can't means won't. It's so right. He's so right. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
So what's something that could make your day?
I am really always looking for people telling me what they heard or seen that maybe I said that changed their life. I was sitting at a luncheon where I was moderating a panel for Women in Technology Hollywood, where I'm a co-chair for programming. And this woman, keeps looking at me. And then she comes over and she says, did you speak in San Francisco in 2019? And I said, as a matter of fact, I did. She says, you changed my life.
Wow.
I said, do tell. She says, well, you gave this talk about, female leadership versus male leadership. And I went right back to my team. I did the debrief and I said, and you asked for a raise. She says, I did. I said, did you get it? She says, yes, 3 times. I said,
wow,
job done.
That's amazing. Doesn't it?
That makes my day.
Oh my gosh, that is wonderful.
Yes.
What's something
Yes.
that could ruin your day?
Whining.
That's it. I get it.
Couldn't do it. Too difficult. Didn't feel like it. I think that we have to get clear on, sometimes you are not well and sometimes you do need to rest. But the whining of that the world is unfair, the victim mode, that there's someone out there to get you, that will ruin my day.
We are so aligned.
I have no time for this.
I finally met somebody that understands me. It's a miracle.
There you go. BFFs
I know, right?
forever.
What's a sound or noise that you love?
Waterfall. So we, Gary and I, my fiance, we go hiking just about every weekend. And so we go around the Santa Monica Mountains, and it's been raining so much, so all the waterfalls are running. And so just the noise of the waterfall just really, really, yes, there he is, the most handsome man on the planet. The sound of the waterfall makes me very happy.
That's great. And so pivoting off of that, what's a sound or noise that you hate?
It's a really bad voice. I have a thing with voices. So when I was dating, it's really bizarre, Crispin, and I'm okay if people judge me for this, but ever so often, someone has a really horrible voice. I'm going, there's not a chance in the world I want to listen to this. I mean, there's just some voices that really don't resonate with, or I vibe with. There's some marketers out there, and I literally cringe because the voice just sets me off. So I have a thing with voices. So a annoying voice would set me off.
That's great. What profession other than your own would you have liked to attempt?
I would have loved to be a world-renowned photographer and been at the top of the game. Looking back and having seen what happened to photography, I now know why that ended up not being my path, because where would I be now? The whole business imploded with when digital came to market and really thinned out the field. But I would have loved to be, a photographer, exhibited, and people buying my prints and putting them in their home. I just wasn't good enough.
There we go. It's really like I said, I learned something new from every one of our guests. And although we do, as you can probably tell, we do our homework here, but I learned something new from every one of our guests when they come on. And I can't thank you enough, Beate. So just make sure people know, how can they find you? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you when they want to seek you out for services and to utilize your organization, to help them?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show, and for everybody listening and watching. Will you please do Crispin a favor? Wherever you watch this, go and give him a 5-star review, subscribe to his podcast or the show, and share this with one other person who needs to hear what we were talking about today. It is a labor of love, and he's dedicated to helping get this information out to everybody. Give him a little bit of love back. Now, you're welcome. As for how you can find me, so I'm all over social under Growth Architect and Beate Chelette. And if you want to figure out where you are stuck in your business, go to Growth Blocker Quiz. That's growthblockerquiz.com. Take the 2-minute quiz, and in no time, we'll be able to help you figure out what your number one business growth blocker is. And then you'll get a report on what to do about it. It's absolutely free. If you heard something where you go, I better be talking to her, then go and schedule a complimentary 15-minute session at uncoverysession.com. Just make sure you put in the notes that you come from the show, so we know who to thank.
That's great. I'm so glad that you came on today. You shared a lot of knowledge and experience about your background, and I'm sure that those that were listening, entrepreneurs, sales individuals, or those that were just listening to want to get some tips and tricks of how to kind of navigate this world of sales. You've been a great guest, and I appreciate it very much. So I always close every show like this, Beate. Keep selling and have fun doing it. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you for having me.